Okay.
Go on.
Okay. On behalf of IIChE NRC, I welcome all the participants for a wonderful lecture. It will be given by Dr. Khandal. This is our key program of NRC, Learning with Leaders. Since 2014, we are pursuing this program, and so far we have conducted about 58 lectures. And today we have honor to listen to Dr. Khandal as a 59th lecture among our series. So we have so far done in the lockdown period about 9 online programs. The rest other was all physical. Now I request Dr. Dheeraj Garg to welcome Dr. Khandal to start the proceedings.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Lotraji. Namaskar, everyone. So, Professor Khandal actually need no introduction, but still, I would introduce. It's my honor to introduce him to all the participants. Some of them may be new. So, Professor Khandal is the President R&D and Business Development at India Glycols Limited, and he has designed several processes and product of global standards. His career started in 1982 as a lecturer in Indian School of Mines, Dhanbad, at a very young age of 25 years. Then he moved on to become group leader in UNIDO project of Government of India. He did postdoc in 1 year in England and 2 years in France. Then he worked in IIChE Specialty Chemicals Mumbai, then India Glycols Limited Kashipur, Shri Ram Institute of Industrial Research Delhi, and different roles. He has also served as Vice Chancellor in Uttar Pradesh Technical University Lucknow from 2012 to 15, and since 2015 he is acting as President R&D and Business Development India Glycols Limited. He has several recognitions to his credit. He is Fellow of Royal Society of Chemistry, London. He has been elected unanimously and the President of World Association of Industrial and Technical Organization, a UN body, for 2 terms in 2012, 10 to 12, and then 12 to 14. He has been expert member of high-level committees of Government of India like Ministry of Science and Technology, Ministry of Food Processing, Child and Women Welfare, and more. He has guided 30 PhD from 10 universities. He has 15 international patents to his credit, 130 research papers in peer-reviewed journals, 5 books written and 2 books edited. He has vast experience and his area of research is multidisciplinary, like surfactants, green chemistry, renewable chemicals, green buildings, nanotechnology, optical plastics, polymers, environmental protection methodologies, fluoropolymers, waste management technologies, to name a few. He has been awarded several prestigious awards like INSME, which is the International Award for Innovation, R.N. Bangur Memorial Award, R.G. Deshpande Award, UP Ratna Award in 2014, Rajasthan Samman Award in 2015, Meri Dilli Award, Srishti Award, MIT Academic Excellence Award, Lifetime Achievement Award by World Environment Congress, Eminent Engineers Award by Institute of Engineers India, FICCI Innovation Award, Guru Vashisht Award by Sri Narayan Sanskritik Chetna Nyas. He is a person of eminence and unique expertise and capabilities, and he knows how to convert challenges into opportunities. He not only professes the values of Indian culture, but he himself practices many of the fundamental principles of humanity and society, while dedicating himself to the cause of technical education, meaningful science and research. So today his lecture is on sustainability of chemical industry through carbon rainbow, concept of green to purple, opportunities and challenges. And as we know, he converts challenges into opportunities. So we are looking towards the forthcoming insightful and interesting talk from him. Sir, over to you, Professor Khandal.
Thank you, Professor Garg. Thanks a lot for such a nice introduction. And I'll try my level best to match to what you have already said about myself. Thank you very much. I must thank Mr. Engineer Luthra ji for inviting me for this wonderful moment and to be amongst the august great chemical engineers of this country. Thank you very much, Luthra ji. I must wish Professor Sambi, Professor Srivastava, Professor Krishna, Professor Chakravarti, Professor Jain, all of you a very good morning. Thank you very much for being there for this program. Luthra ji, I would straight away go to the presentation, and I would share the presentation that I have made for the occasion. The title of the thesis, the title of the presentation is actually directly related to the present day context, that is COP26 that we have all seen. And Pranam Shambangji, and COP26 has brought a lot of things to limelight, and my presentation would be basically covering that. Is my screen visible?
Yes.
Okay. So this is the slides, are the slides visible?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much. So the topic of the presentation is actually sustainability of chemical industry, and sustainability of chemical industry by innovations, and by innovations like carbon rainbow concept, which is green to purple. And I'm just searching to make it in the presentation mode. Just 1 minute. I'm not able to, doesn't matter. So the presentation is basically on the sustainability of chemical industry by carbon rainbow concept, which is a very innovative concept. And this concept takes the whole chemical world from green to purple, of course, starting from the black and gray. And what are the opportunities and what are the challenges in order to achieve that? So the outline of my presentation would be talking about innovations that have happened, that have been happening in chemical industry to make it sustainable, and what are the green perspectives that are there especially in the wake of COP26, which is just over, and all the big countries, their head of the states have already committed towards achieving the sustainability, adopting green engineering. India Glycols is a company where I have been president R&D for last 6 years. And before that, I was involved with this company. I started I learned chemical engineering only in India Glycols, which is a role model of self-sustainability with green technology. And I would like to touch upon some of the innovations that the company has done, and maybe seeing the innovations that company has done, it will certainly, it has been in fact, inspiring other companies to adopt those green methodologies and green technology. What are the grand challenges for sustainability, the trends in chemical industry, and carbon rainbow concept? So this is the presentation outline. Before I actually start my presentation, I must take you back to the knowledge that our forefathers have left with us. Today, the whole world is talking about self-sustainability. Whole world is talking about net zero, is talking about 360-degree life cycle analysis of all chemicals that we produce. But look at this, what our forefathers said. Our forefathers gave us the concept of Panch Mahabhut. And Panch Mahabhut means the whole world, the whole universe, and every pind yatha pinde tatha brahmande, and every pind on this universe is actually made up of 5 basic elements, Panch Mahabhut. And that's what the shlok says of Maharshi Bhrigu. I mean, such knowledgeable people, our forefathers have left us with so much of knowledge. Cheshta Vayuhu, Khamakash Mushmagni, Salilam Dravaha, Prithvi Chatra Sankataha, Shariram Panch Bhotikam. I mean, the whole body is made up of 5 elements. In the case of trees, वृक्षों के शरीर में चेष्टा, गतिशीलता वायु का रूप है, खोखलापन आकाश का रूप है, गर्मी अग्नि का रूप है और तरल पदार्थ जल सलिल का रूप है और ठोस पृथ्वी का रूप है. If this basic concept all chemical industries in the world follow, and if this Panch Mahabhut concept we live with, we will have no problems whatsoever, whether it is climate change or it is global warming. Now let's see another shlok, which again talks about the trees. Tasmat tadage sadvriksharopyaha shreyo arthina sada putravat paripalyascha putraste dharmatah smritaha. If we treat the trees like our sons and we nurture them, they will take care of us all. COP26 is one conference, is one of those conferences, the latest one, which is very important because so many heads of states have committed for doing something. It talks about nothing but going back to basics and going back to renewables, going back to trees and plants and agriculture, horticulture, and follow all systems which are there in the nature. Now, I want to take you straight, taking the knowledge from our forefathers to innovation. Every one of us has been innovating and everyone innovates, but we actually innovate only when we are challenged. You know, we in research, I have had the experience in life of working on industrial research. When I was director Shri Ram Institute for almost about 12 years, the only thing we were doing is solving the problems of the industry. But the institutions normally look for funding for research. If you do research by taking the funding, you will never be able to innovate. You innovate only when you are challenged. And that is what my understanding about innovation. It's the key to sustainability of mankind on earth. I take you the brightest and the best example, in my opinion, of sustainability is living root bridges. These are the pictures from northeast of India. Look at this bamboo root bridge. Okay, this is East Khasi Hills area, and living root bridge again in northeast area. This is another picture of living root bridges, Khasi town of Painursia, and double-decker 2-lane living root bridges of Padu village. Very, very famous. The visitors go there all the way to see how innovations were done. Now look at this. Our forefathers were living like this. And what we have brought the whole world to is something which is very dangerous. But to take care of all the problems that we have created in the name of development, we have to really apply creativity, invent, and then innovate. The difference between the invention and innovation, in my opinion, is that you need cash to have ideas in invention. But in the innovation, your ideas are converted into cash. That is the difference between invention and innovation. So in India, we had been innovating, living with the nature, with the Panch Mahabhut concept, and living with the nature. I define innovation necessarily a new idea, but not necessarily that it has been unheard before. It's necessarily a new product, but not necessarily it has not been seen before. A new method not necessarily been tried before. It is necessarily creative, but not necessarily that you have to be educated to innovate. I have already given the examples of these root bridges. They might have not been educated, but they knew the science of innovation. Without education, they could innovate. It is necessarily to be novel, but not necessarily technology driven, necessarily non-conventional, but not necessarily unknown, necessarily unplanned, but not necessarily they cannot be planned. You can, if you are oriented for innovation, you do it. Necessarily, they are supposed to be instant, but not necessarily they always happen accidentally. Necessarily, they are appreciated, but not necessarily all innovations are diffusible. But necessarily, we can say in the end that all the innovations are like seed, but not necessarily they convert or they fructify in the form of fruits. Where the seed of fruit, innovation always creates value. And that is what I said, when the ideas create cash, it is innovation. Now, why I talked about innovation is because that is fundamental for getting us sustainability. Today, after having done research, engineering, technology, inventions of last 200 years, I say last 200 years because the transformations have happened maximum during 150 years of all that so-called science and technology. We call it modern science and technology. And we have come to the stage where we say sustainability is a risk. Now, let me touch upon sustainability. In my opinion, there are two terms. One is sustainability, the other one is self-sustainability. And this I'm emphasizing more because today in this country, we have so many research institutes, but none of them is self-sustainable. We have IITs, we have NITs, we have educational institutions of Government of India. None of them is self-sustainable. They are sustainable, but they are not self-sustainable. The difference between sustainable and self-sustainable is that sustainability is kinetic dependent, time dependent. I mean, it is only with time how long you are sustainable, because you are getting funding, you can sustain. But self-sustainable is that you are sustainable by yourself. Now, any chemical industry, any industry worth the salt will be self-sustainable only if it follows these fundamental concepts. The first one is keep the backward integration. Process technology for base materials from renewables. If your base material is derived from renewables, you are self-sustainable. Green chemistry and green engineering, if you are following the atom efficiency and you are converting waste into chemicals, so there is no waste as such in your industry, you are self-sustainable. If you are zero liquid discharge, you don't have to wait for NGT to give you an order that you are not supposed to run your factory unless you are ZLD. You should be by design ZLD. So ensuring operations to be environment friendly, eco-friendly. Continue contributing towards societal growth. So have a social responsibility. Always comply. In fact, you follow the norms of self-regulatory beyond statutory. You comply with all that is necessary, and the compliance should be not even 0.001% less than 100%. So if you are complying with all norms and regulations, you will be self-sustainable. Unique, novel, and out of the box. Keep exploring plant-derived key starting materials never tried before. And let me tell you, sir, this is my experience. All chemicals that they have been designed so far, they can be derived very well from renewable resources. You don't have to go for petroleum resources. So this is about defining sustainability. Now, when I define this, I must come with an example. Now, the perfect example is India Glycols. Now, India Glycols is perfect example. Why? Because I have been associated with this company from 1993. So that means almost about close to 30 years. About 35 years ago, nobody would buy the idea of putting up a plant which is based on sugarcane molasses and producing monoethylene glycol. That time the concept was, let us produce monoethylene glycol. Now imagine 30 years ago, that is 1990, 93, in fact 1990, let us say. At that time, Indian chemical industry was in the transformational stage. Now let me tell you, in the year 1957, in fact 1959, the first polyethylene plant came into existence in Bengal, in Rishra. And the plant was set up by none other than the inventor of ethylene. Inventor of ethylene from alcohol, that is from the sugarcane molasses. So what they did is they converted ethanol into ethylene to LDP. And it was a high pressure, high temperature reaction. And they say it happened accidentally. In fact, the discovery of ethylene is considered to be accidental twice. First time during just before the World War, the Germans actually discovered ethylene and polyethylene. How did they do? Again accidentally, because in the container which they were keeping the ethylene, after some time they found that there was solid resin deposited in the bottom of the container. The scientists just threw it, thinking that it is of no use, and that discovery remained just a discovery of no use. But then ICI engineers and technologists, they did the same, and they found that at high temperature and high pressure, you get resinous material. And it was, I think, sometime during the year 1939 or so. The first plant after 20 years was set up by ICI in Kolkata, in Rishra. And it was manufacturing ethylene. Why I'm telling this story is 1959, this ethylene plant remained sustainable only for small period. And there was a time during 85 to 90s that ICI decided to sell it off. And they sold it to Abhay Oswal, the Bindal Agro and that group. They purchased this plant. And ultimately, the ethylene and polyethylene from ethanol stopped. Nobody now manufactures ethylene from alcohol. The only plant in Brazil is coming up, I'm told, which will be making the biopolyethylene from ethanol once again. But of course, that's not the LDP which ICI actually designed. It will be LDP plus HDP with a Ziegler-Natta catalyst, for which they got the Nobel Prize. The point I'm trying to say is that about 30 years ago or 40 years ago, nobody could say that it will be a good idea to go for MEG from ethanol. But Mr. Bhartiya, the then chairman, the founder chairman of this company, said that no, we will go for MEG from, so you start from sugarcane cultivation, processing ethanol to ethylene, and ethylene to ethylene oxide, and to begin with, they were not making ethylene oxide for surfactants. It was only for monoethylene glycol. But later on, then they diversified. India Glycols diversified after, say, 7-8 years of being in operation. 1989 to 95, they were only manufacturing MEG, DEG, TEG. Then they took another route and converted ethylene oxide into value-added products like surfactants, etc. Now, look at this. This slide shows that earlier we were crude oil to processing to petroleum feedstock. Then we were making methanol, acetic acid, all sorts of chemicals. But in that era, it was decided at that time that India Glycols had set up this plant of MEG. I'll tell you one story. I was involved in discussions of when I was general manager R&D in India Glycols way back before I joined Shri Ram Institute. I used to interact with Japanese. And the Japanese companies, when they used to discuss, they used to ask only one question. Will your company be sustainable, Mr. Bhartiya? And our chairman at that time used to laugh at it. He used to say whether sustainable or not sustainable. Let me tell you, this is the only concept which is sustainable. Rest all concepts are not. And he used to always say that we are surrounded by cane sugar fields. And for thousands of years, cane sugar is being grown here, sugar cane, and it will be grown for next 1,000 years. So if with the base material that we are getting, if we are not sustainable, then nobody can call themselves to be sustainable. And how India Glycols have done well is because even their energy cycle is completely sustainable. Even the waste is being converted into, you see here, for steam turbine is run by the biogas which is generated, and even the waste which is there is burnt into ETP. That ETP from boiler again is run steam turbine. So you see the complete energy cycle is also 360-degree, comprehensive and self-sustained. Now with this background, I would like you to have a look at how these 200 years we have really developed as far as chemical industry is concerned. This background is very, very important and it is basic. And I'm glad that person like Professor Garg, Professor Srivastava, Professor Jan, all of them have spent their lifetime teaching students. I think our curriculum of chemical engineering has to be redesigned. I was very happy Professor Chakravarti was talking about coming out with a handbook or manual or some such thing. In my opinion, I think the syllabus of chemical engineering has to be redesigned, taking into account the concepts of green and taking into account the history of chemical engineering. So I have decided in my own way to present this concept starting with the coal, because the whole world is talking about net zero. Whole world is so much occupied with carbon footprint. So let us begin with coal, which is nothing but carbon. Now you see, in last 200 years, we have from syngas. You see here, coal, you get anthracite, bituminous, subbituminous, and lignite. And from there, you get gasify them and get all these molecules: acetyls, ammonia, DME, methanol, syngas, liquids. So all of this you get coal to liquid. Then you have salt and limestone, and you have all sorts of minerals, produce electricity, use it as a fuel. All these things we have been doing it from coal. On the inorganic side, you have salt and limestones, and you have all these chemicals, including the PVC, VCM, EDC, chlorine and chlorine derivatives, clubbing organics with chlorine, then soda ash, glass STPP. And now you see, besides the coal, when we invented crude oil, then came up crude oil, two streams, the refinery and the condensates. From condensates, we all know we get LPG, naphtha, and distillates, which again go to steam cracker. On the other side, the refinery, which will have transportation fuel, just as petrol or diesel or aviation gas or some such thing. Then on the other side, we have petrochemical feedstock. So you have naphtha and gas oil. And from there, we have these units: aromatic reformer, FCC unit, and steam cracker. Now you see the thousands of chemicals that we produce from this. From the aromatic reformer, we have all sorts of aromatics. I mean, I don't have to talk about it, starting from benzene to phenol derivatives to cyclohexane derivatives, and then polyester, which is the largest chemical used for making fiber and also for packaging. FCC unit, which will give you propylene, acrylonitriles, then cumene, and all sorts of polyalkenes, polypropylene fiber. Then we will have from this butadiene derivatives. We will have all sorts of butylenes, and including the styrene butadiene rubber, ethylene derivatives, polyethylene, ethanol, all sorts of these compounds we will have it, including the ethylene oxide, which is coming from petroleum resources. Now, all this is petroleum resources from which we develop these chemicals. See the natural gas, which is again conventional or unconventional. Now, in the conventional, we have non-associated gas, associated gas, that is onshore, offshore, and also non-associated gas, also onshore, offshore. On the unconventional side, we have shale gas, coal bed methane, tight gas, and all of this, we have technologies to convert them into ethane, propane, butane, natural gasoline, and then you subject them to steam cracker and have further base materials and then compounds derived from those base materials. Methane reformer, which will give us so many chemicals, for example, ammonia and ammonia derivatives, methanol and methanol derivatives. Now you see, in India, we have capacities to manufacture methanol, but all our plants are shut down because the methanol we are producing in the country is not able to beat the price of the imported methanol. So we are, in fact, the large importer of methanol. So all these, even acetic acid, we don't manufacture ourselves. We are the one of the leading importers of acetic acid. Why I told you all this story is that during the last 150 years, Why 150 years? Because remember, the first time the scientists were working, the European scientists were working to produce drugs from coal for malaria. And in the process, instead of developing the drug, Perkin was the scientist, William Parkinson. And Parkinson reaction is a famous reaction by which he designed not the drug for the malaria, but he designed a dye. And that dye actually transformed the whole world as far as dyes and colors were concerned. You all know historically, India produced the largest, India was the largest exporter of indigo. And all the textiles in UK and in Europe needed indigo. And at that time, they were all bent upon developing indigo through other resources than importing indigo from India. Britishers, when they came to India, the first and foremost task that they had was to break the back of Indian farmers that the indigo, they forced them to grow only indigo and not rice and wheat. And by the time the indigo discovery happened, the German scientists came out with the synthetic root of indigo. The farmers had nothing to eat and they were asked still to grow indigo. That was the scenario. Now, today we are reverting back after 150 years. We are reverting back to the same situation where each and every application, we are asking for dyes and colors coming from renewable resources. So I would like to touch upon in the next part of my presentation on biomass, which is the fundamental for making these chemicals and what are the opportunities and challenges. In the biomass, we have waste, which can be utilized for generating butanol, ethanol, furfural, and vanillin. From the vegetable oil, biomass gives us vegetable oil. So from vegetable oil, we can have glycerin. And from glycerin, we not only have a biodiesel produced, but also glycerin can be a fundamental base material for producing various kinds of monomers and polymers. Then sugar and starch can be one base material, which can be used for making all sorts of chemicals, including the ethanol, the fundamental chemical ethanol, 1,3-propanediol, propylene glycol, 1-butanol, 1,4-butanediol, isobutanol, isoprene. All these chemicals we can produce from starch and sugar. And from ethanol, of course, today the whole country is actually engaged in achieving the target of 20% addition of ethanol into transportation fuel. But let me tell you, in 1957, the first plant came in this country of manufacturing of polystyrene, starting from ethanol, from sugarcane molasses. So we had the plant in Chennai, which came, I think, in the year 1961 or in the same era of 60 to 70. These four plants came. The Chemplast in Chennai, the plant in Visakhapatnam, the plants, chemicals and synthetics in Bareilly, which was in the one for styrene, the one for polystyrene, PVC, and of course the ethylene in Risra and in West Bengal. So they were all based on ethanol. And ethanol was used for making these. But then came IPCL, and of course later on then the Reliance, and no longer the ethanol remained the base material for making all these chemicals. But we are coming back to the same level. Now the companies are following the route that is followed by India Glycols. The first company which put up the plant for ethylene oxide, following the footsteps of India Glycols, is Croda. Croda is not a small name. They have put up the plant exactly a replica, on the similar lines as India Glycols in America a few years ago. And now they are putting up plants of bioethylene in Brazil. They are putting in several places, and they are talking not ethanol as a feedstock coming from petroleum, but from the biomass. Similarly, all these industrial fuels, special products, lubricants, solvents, asphalt, sulfur, anode coke, all this will come from the biomasses. In fact, each country is talking about hydrogen, syngas, electric power coming from biomasses. So basically what I'm trying to say is that the basic trends, key trends, and this is the outcome of COP21. The COP21 conference, it was decided that all global chemical industry will follow certain innovative ideas, and that ended up into 5 trends. The first trend is industry growth, new value streams, recovery and growth. I mean, wherever the areas where they were at the verge of shutting down or not being able to make progress because of the environmental and eco issues, they said look for new value streams. Sustainability focus, decarbonization, renewable chemicals, waste to wealth. This became the key fundamental task for the chemical industry after COP21. E-commerce, remote digital sales channels. This again is to bring carbon footprint. Policies for regulation, trade and sustainability to make environment and ecology safe, human health safe, human safety, and so forth. Feedstock volatility, competitiveness and sustainability. So these are the 5 trends which came into existence after COP21, and they are taking more focused approach from 2021 when COP26 had just happened. I just want to share with you some key examples which are trend setter. Look into the Google and you just type the sustainability of chemical industry and you will see complete transformation of, nobody talks about petroleum. Everybody is talking of when to get rid of petroleum. Look at England. They say that we will stop using coal by 2030. There will be no electric, no powerhouse which will be burning coal. By 2035, 78% of carbon emission will be reduced. 70% reduction, not of today's level, but of 1990 level. England has promised. 2050, England says that we will be net zero. France says we will be net zero. Many of the European countries say 2050 will be net zero. India has also said 2070 will be net zero. Australia says 2060 we will be net zero. So I just want to share with you some basic examples which will be very interesting examples. Now look at this Dow, Phoenix. These 2 companies, they have partnership. What is a partnership about? 100,000 tons of recycled plastics to be pyrolyzed by the year 2025 in EU. Now, this was decided in COP21 and target was 2025 and it is already on the, they are already on the target. Now, what is the plan? Plan is to all the waste polymers will be pyrolyzed and converted into oil as a feedstock so that they can design new polymers out of it. So pyrolyzed oil, which is to produce food packaging material, to produce all other materials coming from something which was hard to recycle, which has already reached to end of life. So end of life plastics would be made useful again. It's a big contribution. And remember, pyrolysis of 1 metric ton of waste plastic reduces 1 to 3 metric ton of CO2 emission compared to virgin plastics. Look at the other collaboration, which is very worth noting here. Nouryon joined Air Liquide and Port of Rotterdam and Shell. Okay. And what they would do, they would convert waste into chemical. I mean, it's a big project that they will convert waste into chemicals. 360,000 tons of waste to make 220,000 tons of biomethanol, which will be a renewable fuel. Annual waste of 700,000 households. CO2 emission saving estimated about 300,000 tons in comparison to methanol production from fossil fuels. So this is the plan that these 4 companies have decided. This is the most notable one in which India Glycols is involved. In the world, you know, I feel so pride that I'm working with this company and I've learned so much about chemical engineering in this company and also about sustainability. India Glycols, Lenzatech, and Unilever. This is a unique. And after this example, this announcement came in 2020, just about 2 years ago. After this, you pick up the website of any manufacturer of FMCG, and you will see they are following the footsteps of Unilever. What is this about? This collaboration is about Lenzatech capturing the emitted CO2 to convert it into sea-smart alcohol. Lenzatech defines it as sea-smart alcohol, but Unilever calls it purple. They don't call it sea-smart ethanol. They call it purple ethanol. Now, capturing carbon, emitted CO2, and converting into ethanol is one part of the story. But this does not take it to the other end, to the consumer end, to the real achieving the target story, unless India Glycols comes into the picture. So the key player in this whole business is India Glycols. And I'm so fortunate with the blessings of you all seniors and you all great souls who are in this gathering today. Let me tell you, I'm really fortunate to be associated with this project. And in fact, everyone recognized this, this contribution. India Glycols converted all of this smart ethanol or purple ethanol into surfactants, which are called purple surfactants. First time in the world, we produced purple surfactants. Myself and my R&D team, headed by Mr. VP Joshi, we actually converted purple ethanol into purple surfactants. Now, the next part of the story is that this surfactant has been utilized for converting various products by Unilever. And remember, the management of Unilever has taken such a bold step that in next 10 years' time, they will replace all their products by purple-based products and not the petroleum-based, petroleum-derived product. All this is possible because of green engineering. When you have sustainability without compromising our planet's resource, involve taking action now, not delaying it. Environment and living conditions are protected and enhanced, then only you achieve sustainability. But what is green engineering? You design materials, processes, systems, devices, minimizing overall environmental impact over the entire life cycle. Are we teaching this to our students? We are not teaching this to our students. The chemical engineering book should focus on this. We only talk about cost, viability, feasibility. I think that has to be shed now. The tendency of talking about cost has to go because cost is time dependent. What is most important is if you have lost your environment and ecology, at any cost, you can't get it back. So the terms like design for environment, life cycle approach, now every product that is manufactured, people are asking for life cycle approach. They are asking for carbon footprint. They are asking for how sustainable it is. Eco design, sustainable design, cradle to anteshti. You know, these Europeans normally say cradle to grave. You know, we are Indians, we are Panch Mahabhut concept. Our rishis have said. So I never call cradle to grave. I say cradle to anteshti because grave is not sustainable. Grave again is time dependent and kinetic dependent. Okay, and green chemistry. So common theme is environment is considered within the design process. It is this concept that was taken by Unilever, and they took this bold step of green concept and purple concept. Now, what are the design changes we make? The design changes are made based on impact. First, you look at the atmosphere, global warming, ozone depletion, smoke formation, acidification, and human health. I think India and especially the NCR region people it will be very easy for them to understand what this means. We have spoiled our environment in NCR, especially in Delhi, so bad that we don't have to talk about this to explain to them what is the meaning of this. The second impact is hydrosphere. I come from a village, and when I was a small child, we were children, we used to see the groundwater well. When from the top we will look into the well, we used to see water. Today, when we look into the well, we don't see water at all. It is a well which is, you see the earth below, and that earth is also deep. The water used to be 20 feet when I was a child, and today at 100 feet, you will see in the same well which my great grandfathers built. In the same well, when I look deep down, I see a motor installed on the earth, and then there is a deep drilling done to draw the water out. So our groundwater level has gone so much down that all of this country should be worried today about the groundwater, because everywhere we don't have lakes, everywhere we don't have Ganges and Yamuna. Most part of the country is without the rivers, and hydrosphere is really a badly impacted area. Then biosphere, soil depletion, deforestation, resource depletion. The soil quality has really deteriorated because of extensive agriculture. Now, if all these impacts are caused by chemical industry, imagine chemical industry will never be sustainable. So make changes in design, go for manufacturing, extraction, use, disposal, and look for renewable energy, renewable water. So all that is to be seen in order to make sure that the industry remains sustainable. Now, I just give you an example. Now, these examples I'm giving because based on this only, Unilever decided to go for cleaning dirt by the dirt. Okay. So look at this slide. I just want to show that sector-wise byproducts generation. Imagine pharmaceuticals. If you produce 1 kg of pharma product, you produce almost about 70 kg of waste. For each kg of pharma, 25 to 100 kg per kg of product produced. Imagine how much of waste you generate. 80% of waste of this is solvent, 20% is solid. And that solvent and this waste is created because we don't follow the poor atom efficiency. All this keeping in background, we have challenges. Look from COP21 to COP26, what are the challenges? During the 2005 to 25, what we did? Reduced energy intensity. We were talking about it. Reduce energy intensity. Do the carbon management better. And we were educating ourselves about sustainability. This is during this period. But from 2025 to 2105, next 100 years from here, or 75 years from here, these are the 5 big challenges. First, life cycle analysis. Produce everything only when you are sure that what is its life cycle analysis, carbon footprint. Derive all chemicals from renewable chemicals feedstock. Renewable fuels use, don't use the fuels which are petroleum or carbon from coal. Green chemistry and green engineering, and make sure nothing that you produce is toxic. So these are the biggest challenge that we have to deal with. Now, what we have to focus on? Renewable feedstock, renewable energy, atom economy, earth system literacy. Now, this is fundamental, which I said in the beginning of my presentation, Panch Mahabhut. The cradle to Anteshti. Every chemical that you produce must meet its Anteshti. Every product that you produce must meet its Anteshti. Having told you all this, the aim was to derive you to the point of carbon rainbow. This is the concept Unilever came out with. I would just like draw your attention for just few seconds on this carbon rainbow concept. Of course, the carbon renewability, the bottom is carbon black. Then gray carbon, which is about recycling. Carbon black is the one which cannot be recycled. Carbon gray is the one which can be recycled. Then green carbon, based on which I have just given you the example of India Glycols. And there are several other companies which have followed suit which are producing chemicals from renewable resources like green carbon. Then the blue carbon, which is the marine carbon. And a lot of development is happening on the marine carbon that you produce energy from algae, etc. But then the final is purple carbon, which I have already explained to you. That example is LensaTech technology, which has converted absorption of emitted carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide, and that emitted is eaten by that emitted gases collected were eaten by microbes, and enzymatically then they were converted into ethanol, purple ethanol, which was further derivatized and converted into various valuable chemicals by India Glycols. So this is the carbon rainbow concept. If each and every company has to follow this, either you call it carbon smart or you call it purple carbon, but the sustainability of chemical industry in future will depend on this. Decarbonization solutions, this was discussed in COP21, is further elaborated in COP26 to achieve net zero. Net zero, if you want to achieve, you have to follow this carbon footprint approach. So this is very fundamental. Decarbonization, no incremental greenhouse gases to the atmosphere. Climate pledge by countries. Today, I have already told you, each country has made a pledge. Will get business reach net zero. Each business, each university, each institute, each house, we have to be net zero. Climate risk analysis, achieving maintaining net zero by removing carbon equivalent emissions. These are some of the things that we will have to do. We'll have to focus on non-virgin petrochemicals for future. You see, today we are 77% black, 23% green. But in future, we'll have to be purple, blue, brown, gray, maximize on gray. Now a decision has been taken by all the FMCG producers that they will pack their products, all cosmetics, home care products, they will pack in recycled plastics. So this is something that we'll have to focus in future. Now, see this waste carbon stream to purple ethanol. How do they do this? I would just touch upon this because this is a wonderful technology by LensaTech. And already 2 plants, I think, in China, the refineries in China or the steel plants, 2 plants are adopting this, have adopted this technology. It is not at the lab scale, but it is already at the plant scale. And what they do is industrial waste gas, biogas, you can even burn the parali and get this solid waste, biomass, all sorts of CO2, which is there in atmosphere. You collect all of them and put to gas feed stream, gas reception. Then you compress it and bring it here into acetogenic microbes are there. And these microbes are very funny microbes and very useful microbes. I'll just explain to you how they are. In fact, they are designing these microbes in such a way that if you are varying the ratio of these gases, CO plus H2, CO plus H2 plus CO2, H2 plus CO2, electron plus H2O plus CO2, all of this, you vary this, the microbes will modify themselves, or they are genetically modified in such a way that they are able to take care of these ratio changes. You get your recovery and you produce the ethanol from this, the carbon smart ethanol or purple ethanol. Now, let us see. This is what I was just telling you. This microbe, they are going at the genetic level as their DNA levels at the cellular, I mean, as at the gene level. And you see this, that they are modifying it in such a way that no matter, suppose, for example, low hydrogen. Okay. If the hydrogen is low, not available in the feed, the microbe can make hydrogen itself from CO and water. If the high hydrogen, then excess hydrogen can be used by fixing it with carbon in CO2 and higher carbon retention in presence of H2. Any CO-H2 ratio, they are working on to modify this LensaTech company. Now let us see what is the outcome. And this slide, I had kept it in the later part of my presentation, mainly to highlight so that by the time the presentation ends, you don't forget it. and you carry this message home. $42 billion business, not small. $42 billion business of detergents, laundry detergents of Unilever. They will not be utilizing petroleum-based resources. They'll be utilizing the purple derived surfactants in this. Look at this. This is a big company, one of the largest companies of polyester fiber, Lululemon. Lululemon has a business for $109 billion global market for PET fiber. Imagine if the PET fiber is manufactured by monoethylene glycol coming from this purple ethanol. It's a fantastic thing. So Lululemon, LanzaTech and India Glycols, this tie-up is a very unique tie-up. Let's see fuel from CO2. The LanzaTech ethanol is also being utilized for the aviation fuel. And this is another way of saving the environment and ecology. Now let's see how much it is really possible that for years to come we will be able to do. Just have a look at the world map. From the steel plants, look at the amount of CO2, CO we are ejecting from steel plant. Each year 30 billion gallons. If we are able to collect it and convert it into purple ethanol or sea smart ethanol, our job is done. We will save the environment and ecology. We will be able to control the global warming and climate change, and we will have feedstock which will be able to replace the petroleum feedstock. Ethanol generated from this much quantity is going to be huge. Similarly, the refinery and waste gas, 5 billion gallons per year. Now remember, LanzaTech has already signed an agreement with, I think, IOC or Madras Refinery. 1 or 2 refineries have already signed with them. And soon you will have the ethanol being produced from the gases which are ejected from refineries. I would like you to spend a few, 1 or 2 minutes on this particular slide, which is another technology which will make chemical industry sustain for long and for times to come. This is biomass to sustainable bio-based products. And this is a technology by Clariant. Now, I always, on all forums, I keep emphasizing on this particular aspect about technology of Clariant. You see, this is a time when people should not waste their time in patenting the technology and looking for technology transfer and fee for that. Because in COP26, each country has decided to cut down on carbon footprint. So whoever comes out with the technology should adopt it and should get it diffused to the area for which it is meant. This technology is meant for none other than India, in my opinion, because India has hundreds of distilleries. India has millions of hectares of land under sugarcane. India has agri-economy. India parali is being burnt every year. Let me tell you, as a scientist, I am not against parali burning, but parali burning should be done in a manner that is given in our Shastras. Our forefathers used to burn parali only for carbonizing the soil, and the burning was different. But today the parali is being burned by spraying petrol and diesel and then firing it. That is not the parali burning that we are supposed to be allowing. Now, if every year the parali is being burned, and if Delhi, and parali finds the route to Delhi, unfortunately. It doesn't take any route. It only takes the route to Delhi. Delhi is the only city in the country which is affected most by parali burning. But that is besides the point. The point I want to mention here is that all agri-produce must be meant for a purpose. Grains, Government of India lifts all the grain purchases. And today farmers are asking for MSP. The government would be working on giving them MSP, fine. But I think there should be a scheme at the national level for parali. Everything that is produced in the farm should be collected by government. There should be system in place that parali should be collected, and that biomass feedstock coming from cereal straw, corn stover, miscanthus and sugarcane bagasse. All of this must be collected. must be collected and taken to biorefinery. From biorefinery, then you get down to all sorts of products, fatty acids, ethylene oxide, hydrocarbon, enzymes, alcohols, cellulose, biodiesel, cellulosic ethanol. Imagine Clariant has put up their first plant of this ethanol, which is coming from, this is 2G ethanol. This is not 1G, one generation. This is two generation, second generation ethanol. The first plant has come up just last month in Romania. In my opinion, each distillery, in my opinion, each sugar factory, in my opinion, each district should have a huge plant where parali is corrected and put to this biorefinery and subjected to produce fuels, ethanol and biodiesel, meant for automobile, cosmetics, sanitizers, lubricants, and all sorts of plastics. I think this is one technology which can transform chemical industry, not just in India, but of the world. So these are two technologies that I have emphasized, the C-SMART technology of capturing carbon dioxide and this 2G ethanol technology of Clariant. I think we should have hundreds of plants of 2G ethanol technology. There should be all of you listeners, tell your students, teach them about it. I remember India Glycols had taken a lead in this regard also. The first pilot plant of 2G ethanol in this country was set up in India Glycols, first and only. And based on this only, the public sector undertaking refineries had signed an MOU to take up this technology for production of 2G. But they have not yet, because it has still some drawbacks. In my opinion, the Clariant technology should be taken up by all those who are concerned about sustainability. In the end, I would like to say, for sustainability, innovation is the key. And innovation is no new thing to be taught to Indians. We Indians, if we live in the Indian style, I always say, and I repeat it again, 125 crore Indians, if they decide not to fall sick, if they decide not to take and not to go for any medicine, they remain healthy, we will have billions of dollars of money from exporting drugs. We will have our hospitals empty, only meant for treating the foreigners coming to India for checkup and for health care. We all Indians must be healthy. We should teach our children not to fall sick. There should be penalty on each and every child if he falls sick. Falling sick is the self-responsibility. And all our resources that we are building, whether hospitals, medicines, drug, pharmaceutical, they all should be meant for exports. Then only this country can be number one in the world, like our forefathers. They always used to do yoga. They always used to follow the Ayurvedic system. The Vedas, they were typically, you go to any part of the country. You are in Bengal, you are in Tamil Nadu, you are in Kerala. Every one of them, they used to have a lifestyle of 25 saal brahmacharya, 25 saal grahast, 25 saal sannyas, and then vanprasth. Unless we do that, the life is not going to the malls in the late night, or life is not going by late night lighting and all that. Life is to dedicate ourselves for attaining moksha. And that will be possible. And that will only be the way for achieving sustainability, possible only and only if we follow what our forefathers had taught us. Focus on technology for biomass and renewables to chemicals. Imagine our forefathers knew what these all herbs are like. I mean, you will be surprised to see your kidney problem, your liver problem, your bones problem, your heart problem, lungs problem. For each of them, there is a medicine. There is a plant. And each plant can save you for years, not only yourself, but for your next generations. Why to go for then artificial medicines? Why you design medicines for, and why we don't have to then look for health insurance. If you have health insurance, that means you are planning to be in the hospital. If you are planning to be in the hospital, you are bound to be in the hospital. What do you plan for? So let us plan to be healthy. Let all Indians be healthy, and let the chemical industry in India be healthy, following their healthy systems. Opportunity is huge for renewable chemicals. Today you talk to a company, the buyer of they ask for whether it is petroleum derived or it is derived from renewable. The moment you say renewable, he's ready to pay you 10 rupees extra. So the technology which you are considering not feasible or not cost effective today is preferred. User of chemicals across the world are seeking ingredients derived from renewable feed. Okay, renewable feedstock instead of petroleum crude. And the ultimate is, of course, the purple. Ultimate, that is the carbon rainbow concept. I thank you all for your attention and for listening to my presentation. I give special thanks to Engineer R.P. Luthraji. He's a good friend. He's a guide. He's a mentor for me. I have learned a lot from him when we were together as colleagues in that UN project, UNIDO project, and for arranging this program for me. A very special thanks to Mr. V.P. Joshi, Head of R&D of India Glycols, for the technical inputs. The inputs that are there in each of these slides have come from the literature search that he has done. And with these words, I end my speech. I'm sorry if I've taken longer than desired, but I really enjoyed doing this for all of you. I will welcome any questions if you have. And let me tell you, whatever I have spoken is my own personal life experience. And I'm stopping sharing. Okay, already stopped sharing. So I'm ready to take up any questions if you have. Thank you very much once again, Professor Sambi, Sat Sri Akal. Thank you very much for the opportunity. Professor Garg, thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Khandal. Your presentation has been so nice that I did not sleep. Your excellent presentation, everybody has appreciated, and I am getting a lot of messages about your presentation. Thank you very much. And now I will request Dr. Dheeraj Garg to take up the question in the question answer session now.
Okay, so few people have written in the chat box. I request everyone who want to ask question may write in the chat box or may raise hand. I will call one by one. So one of the suggestion is by Mr. Subhash Tandon that please share the copy of video recording, and if possible, if you can share the soft copy, sir. Khandal sir, is it
yes,
possible?
I will be very pleased to share this with whoever is keen on it. I see a lot of questions being raised. If all these questions...
recording we have, we
Right.
can share the recording, but we request Dr. Khandal to share us the soft copy, because those who are not attended, so they'll be very happy to take your from your presentation.
Sir, I will submit that to you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right, sir.
Thank you.
And Sami sir has already asked 3 million of tons of paddy straw is being burned by farmers to pollute the atmosphere, wastage of biomass that needs to be processed differently. I think you have already given the answer.
I just want to add here one thing, Gargji. You see, all of us, because I am a farmer, so, and I'm a farmer by actual real farmer, worked with my own hands in my childhood up to the age of 15. So when you do agriculture, somebody is asking something, so I stopped.
No, I think you can continue, sir.
Okay, when you do agriculture, the top portion is for the harvest, is for the grain. The middle portion is for the fodder, is for the animals. But the portion which is up to 6 inch from the ground, the roots up to 6 inch for the ground, is not meant for either the animals or for any humans. It is a waste. Why it is a waste? Because that is the carbon content which must get into soil. The forefathers used to do what? You know, when we were children, we used to burn parali in a very scientific way. What was the scientific way? First, we will spray the ground with water. We'll spray water on the ground. So all the parali will become wet. Then we will ignite it And slowly, it will burn for a period of 7 days to 10 days. Because 7 days to 10 days was the time by which preparatory time before the next crop is taken up. So for 10 days, it used to burn, and used to burn slow. So instead of getting into CO2, it will actually generate CO more in content. And that will get absorbed because the soil is wet. But nowadays in Haryana, Punjab, especially in Haryana and Punjab, and also in UP, they spray petrol and then they fire it. So it burned within say few hours. And that is something which is not good. It is bad. So instead of burning it there, the government of India should have a focus, should have a Niti Aayog should work on it to see how we can collect this parali, because it's a valuable resource for biorefinery. This is what I meant.
Now, can I just come in?
Yes, sir.
Hello.
Please go on.
Yeah, see, Oswal had put up a plant in Punjab to burn, to produce furfural from paddy straw. And that worked for a few months or few days, and after that it was closed. So I just wanted to know what was the main problem there.
Can I answer? Who is this who has asked?
Sambi.
Acha, Swamiji Sat Sri Akal. Actually, I tell you, my presentation was only to ignite the minds, the great minds of chemical engineers and chemists and mechanical engineers and technologists, only for the purpose that we should understand what is happening. The biggest challenge with biomass is not converting the real base material into a chemical. The biggest challenge is to separate lignin from cellulose. Any production facility which is able to deal with this challenge is successful. Now, in manufacture of furfural, first and foremost thing is you should separate cellulose from lignin and separate it without use of much of chemical. The first chemical that you require for separation of lignin from cellulose is acid. And too much of concentrated acid. That acid you are supposed to neutralize with base. So much of chemicals are gone. Then the second aspect is enzymatic degradation of cellulose into sugars, into furfural. There, the enzymes today, India is the largest importer of enzymes in the world. We don't manufacture enzymes. We import from country which is not even rich in biomass. The largest exporter of enzymes, you know all which country. And we are buying it from them. So we should look for a technology, we should go for a technology which has in situ formation of enzymes. That's why I always profess for Clarion technology. Clarion technology for converting biomass into 2G ethanol has a unique feature of self-generating in situ formation of enzymes. So that is why the Oswal company could not work. That is why the IIChE chemicals was shut down, because you are not able to meet the cost. You are not able to meet the environmental factors. The technology is not up to the mark.
Can I just come in? See, the Oswal used gasification technology and
Yes,
not separation of lignin and this.
Sir,
Now,
actually,
the
when you burn it the other way, yeah, I'll come to that point. When you come to the other route is that you burn your biomass, okay, then you don't require a fuel, because biomass itself is self-burning. You burn it, get syngas, and then produce furfural. There the impurities happen so much that it is really a tedious task. It is not only by burning. In fact, if you are able to, I would not furfural. If you are able to convert biomass into methanol. In the task force of Government of India, I happen to be the expert member. And it was being discussed, what do we do with methanol? Because Niti Aayog has prepared a document called C1 economy. That is methanol economy. The Niti Aayog has prepared. And their focus is on methanol. I always advise, and I always profess for this, We should not worry about making methanol. We should look for dimethyl ether. Because methanol is available cheaply from Trinidad and Tobago, is available from Iran, is so cheap coming from petroleum resources. But if you are making methanol from biomass, it will be fantastic. Don't have to go for furfural. My recommendation would be to go for cellulose to sugar to ethanol and furfural, and that biorefinery system, like the Clarion technology or any other technology which goes that route. And lignin be converted into, there is only one plant in India which manufactures lignin, and that is export oriented in Punjab. I don't remember the name of the company, but it manufactures only plant lignin. Our paper industry is in doldrums. Each paper industry is in doldrums only because of this fact that the lignin that they generate is creating a havoc in the environment. So they always have environmental issues. So my presentation today was basically to focus on converting waste into chemical.
Okay, the next question is from Mukesh Bhatt from Manipal University, Jaipur. He has asked, is it better to go for manufacturing chemicals rather than producing chemicals from biomass waste?
Producing biomass, chemical from biomass waste?
No,
Yeah,
no,
we should go for chemicals from biomass waste.
No, he said, is it better to go for manufacturing chemicals rather than producing chemicals from biomass waste? I mean, directly rather than from using biomass to produce chemical. Do you think?
No, you see, biomass, we should understand. All biomasses have one common fundamental structure, lignin and cellulose. So both of them are polymer. Cellulose is polymer, which is highly hydrophilic. Lignin is polymer, which is very hydrophobic, okay, or a mixture of the two. And they are so embedded into each other, unless you break that chain, break that bonding of lignin and cellulose, you can't produce chemicals. You have to get into the base materials and then build your chemicals from that.
So he is asking, should we go for producing fuel from the biomass or should we go for producing chemicals from biomass?
Okay, both. We should do both.
Okay.
As I told you, go for methanol from biomass. Okay, go make syngas, and from syngas, then you have a range of chemicals. Or you have fermentation, which is 2G ethanol technology, and build all biomasses. Both.
Okay. Okay, so is there any question? Anyone? I guess there is no further question. So
Yeah, excuse me.
I can continue my
Excuse
same
me.
question
Yeah,
if you
excuse
allow
me.
me.
Mohammad Naeem ji may be
Yes,
asking
yes.
question. Yeah, please.
Yeah,
go ahead.
actually, this is Muhammad Naeem. I'm from Qatar Energy, and I did also master degree from Indian School of Mines. I thanks Mr.
Oh, pranam, Naeem ji, pranam.
Yeah, it was one of the topic was very interesting for us that you said for the CO2 capturing, and Indian Glycol is doing a good on developing the glycol. That is the one of the main technology we are using for CO2 capturing. But you know, our bulk production is very high because we are working in the oil and gas industries. So all the CO2 capture is going for either for UR or we are doing the sequestration, but that is on the pilot scale. But the idea that you have given to convert the CO2 into the methanol, I think some smart methanol. So how you think on the value chain point of view that if you go from this utilization of this CO2 through that route, is it the value chain is established?
Sir, first of all, let me just tell you, CO2 is a molecule, which is a wonderful molecule.
Yeah.
Because it exists in gas form, liquid form, and solid form.
Solid also, dry ice.
And it is, when it is solid, you utilize it for mixing it for all your beverages.
Yes.
Your soft drinks, your carbonated drinks, all have this CO2, which is solid CO2. When it is in the liquid form and when it is in the critical conditions, CO2, it is the best solvent for extraction of nutraceuticals, extraction of functional foods. It is a very good green solvent for carrying out all sorts of reactions. The biggest challenge with CO2 is that it is highly stable. A stable chemical is very difficult from chemical engineering point of view, is very difficult to handle, to deal with, to convert into various other products. So you must have seen anything where CO2 is used, you will always see CO2 plus H2.
Yeah.
Because H2 is a molecule which can do both ways.
Correct.
It reduces plus also it adds up. So when you have CO2 with H2, it actually you get it to CO. And CO is highly reactive. So then you convert all sorts of molecules. Now coming to your point that you have the pilot facilities for capturing CO2, sequestering CO2. See, by sequestering CO2, you are not bringing into useful form.
Yeah.
Sequestering is only for disposing, discarding it in the form of carbonates.
Yeah.
Okay. In long run, carbonates is okay. If you are converting CO2 into carbonate, it doesn't go into the greenhouse gases. Carbonate will remain in the earth, will serve the purpose of making the increasing the fertility of soil. But the ideal would be if you go for atom economy, convert CO2 into useful carbon resource, CO2 into ethanol, CO2 into any other chemical through microbiological reactions.
Yeah, that's good. But last portion was that, is it somewhere in your survey and assessment, the value chain is established? I mean that if you are doing this one, is it going to make sense in terms of the economics?
Sir, the presentation which I have made, sir,
too early.
Naeem, sir,
Hmm.
the presentation I have made is not based on laboratory scale. 500 tons of purple ethanol we have converted into hundreds of tons of monoethylene glycol, based on which millions of meters of Lululemon fiber was manufactured, based on which the detergent powders are launched, and we have hundreds of tons of this material is supplied. So it is, and I told you already 2 plants in China and 2 are in India about to come. And the LensaTech plans are that in next 5 to 10 years, there will be no dearth of, if you are looking for purple ethanol, it will be available plenty.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Ji, sir.
Akhilesh Kumarji, you can ask, please. You have this, sir.
Akhilesh ji, pranam.
Sir, you unmute, sir. Unmute yourself, sir.
Akhilesh ji, pranam.
Akhilesh ji,
Yeah. My point is that you have a challenger and defender product when you are talking about any new way of tackling a problem or changing the concept, whether it is on life cycle or anything. So this is a fight between challenger and defender.
Yes,
And you have talked of life cycle concept, but I raised the point that one should talk about the total life cycle energy concept for
Absolutely.
2 products. Because water and air, both are there when you are handling waste from a product, or you are making a product, or you are handling air environment or water or soil environment. So this view is very, very important. I do not know what opinion you hold about it.
Sir, I completely agree with you. How green you are is not because you are just doing cane sugar and it becomes green. No. If you are using tractors, if you are completely mechanized, you are actually cutting down your green concept. You are getting into a black area. It is green only and only, and it has to be 360-degree energy audit and energy balance, mass balance. So basically, it has to be in real terms green. Now, I just tell you an example of converting waste into chemical.
Yeah.
When we convert waste into chemical, also requires energy.
Yeah.
But that energy is offset by the energy we consume for getting a virgin plastic.
That's right.
For example, the project where 100,000 tons of plastics would be pyrolyzed.
Yeah.
Now, what will happen? When they pyrolyze it, they would require energy. But the only thing they are saving is that when they do not have to produce virgin plastic. So two advantages. Number one, the energy saving. When you produce the virgin plastic, you will require more energy than this. And number two is you are not generating another waste.
That's right.
So this is 2A. But I agree with you that it has to be seen in toto. Very good, sir.
Actually, I raised this point because I have invented the technology of the LAPSA way back in the year 1998. And I'm a man from petroleum as well as fertilizer. And in both the areas, I have been involved partly with development of the technology itself and commissioning of the world's largest refineries and fertilizers.
Sir, thank you very much that you raised this point and you have talked about it. Let me tell you one thing, sir.
Yeah.
I always tell to my students when I give this lecture, the biggest molecule that mankind has invented is linear alkyl benzene.
Yeah.
Linear alkyl benzene is there present in almost every detergent worth the salt, to the extent of 10 to 15% of the total composition, maybe in some of them 25%.
That's right.
Now look at this. What is linear benzene? If we are able to convert alpha olefin, alpha olefin by the biomass route, I'm looking for somebody who can actually partner with India Glycols, because India Glycol management is very keen on coming up with green alpha olefin. And green alpha olefin is completely biodegradable, is environment friendly, and how it is to be produced is to be produced from green ethylene. So, sir, if we are able to convert the biomass into green ethylene, I mean, via, of course, the 2G ethanol route, and that green ethylene, if we are able to convert into alpha olefin, it is like a Nobel Prize.
Yeah, in this connection, I would like to mention about APG, alkyl polyglucoside.
Yes, sir.
And that was based on the sugar cane. And
Yes,
some 20 years back, this world majors, they started work, but it did not see the light of the day. I do not know why.
Sir, I'll tell you one thing. APGs are the best surfactants. Okay. Yeah. Alkyl polyglucoside are the best surfactant, green surfactants. For alkyl, you take the coconut oil based materials. Coconut oil is used to get the alkyl group, which is like any alcohol of C10 or C12. C12, like lauryl alcohol, you get it from the coconut oil.
Yeah.
And the sugar.
Yeah.
And you do the reaction under pressure, you react both of them, the alcohol with sugar, and make glucoside. This is the best molecule. But the only thing is the food versus fuel. Okay, sugar, you would prefer to consume it for food rather than getting into chemical. That is why I never recommend anyone to go for, like, for example, especially these Europeans.
Yeah.
Like when we were talking about Clarion technology and I was discussing with their technologists, I was just trying to tell them that your 2G ethanol technology has to be on parali, not based on straw. Because in India, straw is costlier than the grain. I come from the village.
Very right.
The bajra crop, the bajra will give you as much value as its fodder. And so is the case with wheat, so is the case with chana, so is the case with, I told them that mustard is the only agriculture crop.
Yeah.
The straw is not eaten by the animals.
Yeah.
So you can burn it. And in the household, people are burning. The whole of Rajasthan, especially the Alwar district, the Kota, up to Jaipur, that is a belt of mustard production.
Yeah.
So those are the kind of raw material, base materials, biomass, which should go into this kind of chemicals, not the food.
You have raised a very wonderful point. That's and I am so happy to hear you. It's full of content, I mean, something which is heart touching and going to the core of the issue.
Aapka Ashirwad, sir.
Thank you very much.
Okay, we are running short of time. So I will take one last question from Mukesh.
Dheeraj, I just want to add one thing. Dr. Khandal has said that there is only one straw which can be is not eaten by the animals. you must remember that paddy straw is also not eaten by animals. The reason is that paddy straw contains 20% silica and no animal touches it. That is why all this paddy straw is being burnt.
Sir, actually, Sami sir, I had not mentioned the paddy straw because paddy straw is not considered as straw. And today, paddy straw and bagasse are two biomass materials which are highly priced for burnt in the sugar industry. They are burning it up boilers. So that is why I did not pick up, because they're getting good value. Paddy straw is giving good value. And I agree with you that paddy straw is the best source for precipitated silica. If we have to manufacture precipitated silica in a sustainable manner, instead of doing it from the sand, we should do it from the paddy straw. I agree with you, sir. Thank you.
So one last question, and I hope we'll conclude session from there. So the last question from Mukesh Bhatt, he said pyrolysis produces soil and it requires separation strategies to recover from the petrochemical. Is it better to produce this chemical through pyrolysis compared to gasification of biomass or waste?
No, I didn't get pyrolysis. I was talking about the polymer pyrolysis, because that is already a waste, the disposed for plastics.
No, biomass can be gasified and it can be pyrolyzed.
Yes, of course. Basically, biomass, in my opinion, should be done both ways. As I told you, one, lignin cellulose separation for going for 2G ethanol technology, and from there the ethanol and all sorts of chemicals, including furfural and including the replacement of PTA to make polyester, which is green, one route. The other route is burning the biomass under controlled conditions to create syngas. And from syngas, you have all sorts of chemicals. And remember, the comparison of biomass with petroleum is actually meaningless. We should not have wasted so much of petroleum. We should have focused ourselves on biomass. And it's high time that we do this now. And there, of course, the topic is so interesting. Remember, if you want to increase biomass, if your economy is based on biomass, which is a biomass waste, then your economy will demand for animal husbandry and for cows. The Chief Minister of Tripura had once said that the young generation engineers must start having cow breeding for this. It was the best idea. Our forefathers had left the best technology, that is the UPLA technology. And you know, the whole world, the Nobel Prize Pachori ji got was basically on stop animal slaughtering. For biomass, it is directly proportional. We humans forget that the rains come not for us. Rains happen for all sorts of creatures on this earth. The more we replace the creatures and build our own colonies, we are creating this problem. But nobody talks about it, because this is something which affects a lot of industry, the beef industry. I just given one example out of the context. Imagine last year, India imported 1,38 crore 38 lakh tons. 1 crore 38 lakh tons of palm oil from Malaysia and Indonesia. Imagine, and at the rate 65% more than last year. Because of Corona, the rates went up. And who benefited? Malaysia and Indonesia. Imagine if we all Indians eat only ghee. Today, we are exporting beef. We are the largest exporter of meat in the world. We have replaced Brazil. We have replaced all others. We are the largest exporter of meat. We should stop this. We export meat. That means indirectly we are exporting protein and we are exporting fat. But what we are doing, we are importing pulses and we are importing vegetable oil. Look at this. We have to, in Niti Aayog, eminent people like you should say. In Niti Aayog, whom we have? We have people like all economists. Today, you pick up a newspaper, any newspaper, And the articles are written by all economists, economy. 80% of the students today are going for either economy, commerce, economics, commerce, BBA, MBA. Only 20 to 25% are going into technical education. If you divide them by two, about 12.5 to 15% in engineering and 15% in science and medical. The country is really going towards, in a direction which is very, very dangerous. There was a time 60 years ago when I was born, only 25 to 30% Indians used to eat meat. Today it is the reverse. Today 75 to 75% eat meat, and strictly vegetarians are hardly 20%, 25%. This is all boiled down to sustainability. We can't afford to produce the level of wheat and rice that we are producing today. We will have to switch our FAO report 2016. Please pick up and read. It very clearly says, unless you stop producing wheat and rice, you will not be sustainable on this earth in times to come. You will have poverty. You will have people dying of hunger. You start growing millets.
Right.
Sorry, besides the point, but
No, thanks a lot, sir. Thanks a lot for such a insightful and knowledgeable talk. I now request Professor Anil Verma ji, please to give the concluding remarks and word of thanks. Over to you, sir.
Yeah, thank you very much. So, on behalf of IIChE and NRC, I would like to thank Professor R.K. Khandal for the insightful and inspiring lecture on sustainability of chemical industry through carbon rainbow, concept of green purple. And in fact, see, it is indeed the presentation which fits well into the program theme, which is the learning with the leaders. I mean, the way the people are interested and they have actively taken part, we can understand how inspiring and knowledgeable the lecture was. So, in fact, you have covered everything related to the entire chemical industry. So, in fact, it is a bird's eye view, what I can say. You have talked about the sustainability and the self-sustainability and defined it very nicely. So, I'm very glad. Apart from that, few more terms are there that you have nicely pointed out, like the creativity, invention, and the innovation. Very, very nicely presented. Then you have also put up the details on the reducing energy intensity, then the carbon management, sustainability, education also. In fact, you have touched upon what should be the curriculum of the chemical engineers. So that is also well appreciated. Then the life cycle analysis, the LCA, then the green chemical, green engineering, renewable fuels. I mean, you have touched each and every part. So it is overall very, very inspiring and motivating lecture. And at the end, you have discussed about the four type of carbon: purple, green, blue, and gray. So I mean, so this is really very grateful to understand these kind of knowledge information from your side. So finally, and just I'd like to add, because we have discussed about the COP. So in the recent COP26, as everybody knows, which was held in Glasgow, India has promised to cut emission to net zero by 2070, and also committed that by 2030, the 50% of the India's electricity, which is around 500 gigawatt, will be fulfilled by the renewable energy. I mean, these are the very ambitious targets. So the way you have presented, so if we can we can think in that line, then definitely we can reach to that point. And the last point I would try to say or like to tell, that CO2 to the fuel or the feedstock chemical, this is also very well appreciated, because once the CO2 is there, with the help of the renewable energy, you can convert into the either directly to the fuel or the chemical feedstock for the industry. So with that, before ending, I'll finally say that the success of any event is dependent on the participants. So you can see around 50 participants are there, and all are so actively involved or engrossed, and they are asking the question. Because of the paucity of the time, we could not take all the questions, but we believe with the help of the presentation that we have given, you can share with the participants so that they can again go through it and then they can be benefited. So therefore, on behalf of IIChE and NRC, I thank to all the participants, those who have participated in this talk. Okay, thank you very much. Now over to Mr. Luthra.
Thank you, Vermaji. Pranam. Thank you, Vermaji. So kind of you.
Dr. Khandal, thank you very much. It was so enlightening lecture. I am honored by your agreeing to deliver lecture to our fellow members here. And
Sir, I must
hopefully,
thank you.
we'll hopefully listen to more and more in future.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Pranam.
Thank you very much.
आप सबको प्रणाम. सबको प्रणाम. Thank you.